Captain Jake Martinez rubbed his eyes and stared at the screen again. The coffee had gone cold hours ago, but he kept sipping it anyway. The research vessel New Horizon had been studying quantum readings near Neptune for 3 weeks now, and honestly, Jake was getting pretty bored with the whole thing. "Still getting those weird energy spikes, Captain," said Lisa Chang from the pilot's seat. She was munching on a protein bar and had her feet up on the console. "Whatever's causing them is definitely not natural." Tony Rodriguez looked up from his engineering station where he was playing some kind of mobile game. "Could be solar wind interacting with ice particles," he said without much interest. "Or maybe some old satellite we forgot about." Dr. Amy Watson was the only one who seemed excited about anything. She had been studying the readings for days, making notes and running calculations. "No, this is definitely artificial," she said. "The pattern is too regular, too organized. Something is generating these quantum signatures on purpose." Ben Clark, their communications officer, was half asleep at his station. He had been monitoring radio frequencies for so long that he barely noticed the static anymore. "Whatever it is, it's not talking to anyone," he mumbled. Jake stretched and stood up. "Space exploration sounded exciting when you were a kid, but most of it was just sitting around waiting for something interesting to happen." "All right, Amy, you win. Let's go take a look at whatever's making your readings dance around." Lisa sat up and started entering coordinates. Finally, something to do. I was starting to forget how to actually fly this thing. The New Horizon moved slowly toward the source of the quantum signatures. It was a small ship, built for research rather than speed or comfort. The crew of 5 had been working together for 2 years, and they had developed the kind of casual relationship that comes from spending too much time in a small space together. "Distance to target, 2,000 kilometers and closing," Lisa reported. "Still nothing on visual." Tony put away his game and started running diagnostics on their systems. It was routine work, the kind of thing he could do in his sleep. "All systems normal. Engines running smooth, life support stable, sensors working fine." Ben was finally paying attention to his instruments. "I'm getting something on long range. Scanners. It's big, whatever it is." Amy was practically bouncing in her seat with excitement. "The quantum readings are getting stronger, much stronger. We're definitely heading toward the source." Jake looked out the main view screen, but space looked the same as always. Black, empty, and boring. "How big are we talking here, Ben?" "Really big," Ben said, adjusting his instruments. "Like space station big, maybe bigger." That got everyone's attention. There weren't supposed to be any space stations out here. This was empty space, far from any regular shipping routes or research facilities. "Are you sure your equipment is working right?" Jake asked. "I ran 3 diagnostic checks," Ben replied. "Either my sensors are completely broken, or there's something massive about 500 kilometers ahead of us." Lisa was already adjusting their course. "Want me to take us in for a closer look?" Jake thought about it. They were supposed to be studying quantum anomalies, not investigating mysterious objects in space. But they were out here anyway, and it's not like they had anything better to do. "Yeah, let's check it out. But stay ready to leave quickly if things get weird." The New Horizon continued forward, and slowly something began to appear on their screens. At first, it was just a dot, then a shape. Then finally, they could see what they were dealing with. "Holy crap," Tony said, staring at the view screen. In front of them was the largest artificial structure any of them had ever seen. It was clearly a space station, but it was enormous. Multiple sections connected by huge corridors, with ships moving between docking bays like busy traffic. Lights covered the entire surface, and energy readings showed that the thing was using more power than most cities. "Well, that's definitely not ours," Jake said calmly. Amy was recording everything, her instruments going crazy with readings. "The technology is incredible. The power output alone should be impossible with anything we know how to build." Lisa was already backing them away from the structure. "Should we get out of here? This seems like the kind of thing that might have weapons." Before Jake could answer, Ben's communication panel lit up like a Christmas tree. "Captain, we're being hailed. Multiple sources, different frequencies. They definitely know we're here." Jake sighed. So much for a quiet research mission. "Any of them speaking English?" "Negative. But the computer is trying to make sense of it." Ben worked at his controls for a moment. "Got something. Computer says, one of the signals might be some kind of universal translator protocol." "Put it through," Jake said. The main screen flickered, and suddenly they were looking at something that was definitely not human. It looked like a giant bug, with compound eyes and clicking mandibles. When it spoke, the words came through their translator in a mechanical voice. "Unknown vessel. You have entered Imperial space without authorization. Prepare to be boarded for inspection and processing." Jake looked around at his crew. Lisa was still ready to run. Tony was staring at the alien with interest. Amy was taking notes frantically, and Ben was trying to figure out how their translator was working so well. "Well," Jake said, "I guess we're not the only ones out here, after all." More ships were already moving toward them from the massive station. They were sleek and fast, clearly designed for intercepting other vessels. The New Horizon was completely outmatched. "Orders, Captain?" Lisa asked. Jake considered their options. They could try to run, but those ships looked a lot faster than their research vessel. They could try to fight, but they had exactly 0 weapons, unless you counted Tony's toolkit. Or they could see what these aliens wanted. "I guess we're about to make first contact," he said. "Lisa, shut down the engines. Ben, try to tell them we're peaceful explorers. Tony, make sure our life support can handle visitors. Amy, keep recording everything." "Are you sure about this, Captain?" Lisa asked. Jake shrugged. "Not really, but what else are we going to do? Besides, how dangerous can they be? They're probably just as confused about us as we are about them." The alien ship surrounded the New Horizon, and Jake realized their quiet research mission had just become a lot more complicated. But honestly, it was still more interesting than staring at quantum. Readings all day. The alien ships guided the New Horizon to a docking bay that was bigger than most shopping malls. Jake and his crew found themselves standing in what was clearly some kind of holding area, surrounded by the bug-like aliens they had seen on screen. Up close, the creatures were even more impressive, standing nearly 7 feet tall with chitinous armor that gleamed under the artificial lights. "So," Jake said to the apparent leader, "nice place you've got here? Very spacious." The aliens stared at him with compound eyes that reflected light in strange patterns. "You will be brought before the Imperial Council for evaluation and integration processing." Amy was looking around with genuine interest, taking mental notes about the architecture and technology. The walls seemed to be made of some kind of living metal that shifted slightly when touched. "Integration processing?" she asked. "All new species must be properly evaluated before joining the Galactic Empire," the alien explained in its mechanical, translated voice. "This is standard protocol. You will learn the proper procedures." Tony was examining the docking clamps that held their ship. "Pretty clever design," he said to Lisa. "Though I bet we could improve the magnetic coupling efficiency by at least 15%. Lisa nodded. "Yeah, and the power distribution looks kind of wasteful. Must cost them a fortune to run this place." The lead alien's head tilted in what might have been confusion. "You are not afraid?" "Should we be?" Jake asked. "I mean, you seem reasonable enough, and your translator works pretty well, though there's a slight delay on the consonants." Ben was studying the communication panels, built into the walls. "Their signal processing is interesting but kind of basic. I'm surprised they haven't upgraded to quantum encryption protocols." The aliens exchanged what sounded like rapid clicking noises. Jake got the impression they were discussing something important, but the translator wasn't picking it up. "Come," the leader finally said. "The council waits." They were escorted through corridors that stretched for what felt like miles. The station was clearly enormous, with different sections containing different types of aliens. Jake saw tall, crystalline beings that sparkled when they moved, amphibious creatures that looked like they belonged in tide pools, and various other species that defied easy description. "Wow," Amy said. "This is like a whole civilization up here. How many different species are represented?" "The Galactic Empire consists of 12 member species," their escort replied. "We have maintained peace and prosperity for over 3,000 years. "That's pretty good," Jake said. "Earth governments usually can't keep it together for more than a few decades at a time." They arrived at what was obviously an important room. It was huge, with a high ceiling and walls covered in screens showing various star systems. 12 different types of aliens sat in a circle around a central platform, each clearly representing a different species. "Humans of Earth," announced their bug-like escort. "Present yourselves to the Imperial Council." Jake stepped forward, feeling like he was in some kind of courtroom. "I'm Captain Jake Martinez of the research vessel New Horizon. This is my crew: Lisa Chang, Tony Rodriguez, Dr. Amy Watson, and Ben Clark." One of the crystalline beings spoke, its voice like wind chimes in a breeze. "We are the Imperial Council, representatives of the 12 species that comprise our great civilization. You have been brought here because your species appears to be capable of faster-than-light travel." "Yeah, we've had that for a while now," Jake said. "Pretty standard stuff." The council members exchanged glances, or what passed for glances among their various species. One of the amphibious aliens spoke next. "Perhaps you do not understand the significance of this achievement. Faster-than-light travel represents the pinnacle of technological development. It is what separates true civilization from primitive planetary species." Tony scratched his head. "I mean, it's useful for getting around, but it's not that complicated. Once you figure out the math, basic quantum tunneling principles, really. An alien that looked like it was made of flowing liquid metal rippled in what might have been surprise. Basic? The development of FTL technology typically requires centuries of advancement. Took us about 50 years once we started seriously working on it," Amy said. "Though we probably could have done it faster if we'd had better funding for the research programs." Lisa was looking around at the impressive displays and technology surrounding them. "This is all pretty cool, but do you guys have bathrooms somewhere? It's been a long trip." The silence that followed was deafening. Jake could practically feel the confusion radiating from the council members. A tall, imposing alien with what looked like natural armor plating spoke in a deep, rumbling voice. "You stand before the Imperial Council, representatives of the most advanced civilization in this galaxy, and you ask about sanitary facilities?" "Well, yeah," Lisa said. "I mean, nature calls, you know, even in space." Ben was studying the communication systems built into the council chamber. "Your holographic displays are nice, but the resolution could be better, and the audio processing has some feedback issues in the lower frequencies." Another long silence. Jake was starting to get the feeling that this first contact thing wasn't going the way anyone expected. One of the council members, a being that looked like a walking tree made of metal, spoke slowly. "Perhaps we should explain the significance of this moment. Your species has achieved a level of technology that grants you the privilege of joining our empire. This is a momentous occasion." "That's nice," Jake said. "What exactly does joining entail? Do we have to pay dues or anything?" Amy was examining the scientific equipment visible around the chamber. "Your sensor arrays are interesting, but they seem to be using older quantum resonance patterns. Have you experimented with multi-dimensional scanning protocols?" The crystalline being's internal light flickered rapidly. "We use the most advanced sensor technology available." "Available where?" Amy asked. "Because these look like the kind of sensors we were using maybe 10 years ago. They work fine, but there are much more efficient designs available now." Tony was pointing at various pieces of equipment around the room. "Same with your power distribution." "Systems," And that environmental control setup looks pretty energy intensive. You could probably cut your operating costs by 30% with some basic efficiency upgrades. The council members were now definitely exchanging looks of concern. The armored alien leaned forward. You speak as if our technology is inadequate. Oh no, Jake said quickly. It's perfectly adequate. It's just not particularly impressive, you know? I mean, it gets the job done. The liquid metal alien rippled more violently. Not impressive? We have conquered the secrets of faster-than-light travel, energy manipulation, and planetary engineering. Yeah, so have we, Ben said. Plus, we've got some other stuff that might interest you. Our quantum computers are pretty decent, and our medical technology is fairly advanced. Amy nodded enthusiastically. Oh, and our terraforming techniques are much more environmentally sustainable than what I'm seeing in your data displays. The silence this time lasted so long that Jake started to wonder if their translator had broken. Finally, the tree-like being spoke. Perhaps we should arrange for a more detailed exchange of information to better understand your capabilities. Sure, Jake said. Happy to share. But first, could someone please show Lisa where the bathroom is? She's been asking for 20 minutes now. The alien assigned to educate them about galactic civilization was named Vextar, and he seemed nice enough. He was one of the amphibious species called Kalari, with smooth, bluish skin and large eyes that reminded Jake of a dolphin. Vextar had been chosen because he specialized in first-contact situations, though Jake got the impression this wasn't going like his usual cases. "Welcome to the Galactic Empire," Vextar said, as he led them through what was obviously a museum or educational center. "I will be your cultural liaison during your integration period." The walls were covered with displays showing the history and achievements of the Empire. Jake and his crew followed along politely, though he noticed Tony was more interested in how the holographic projectors worked than in what they were actually displaying. The Empire was founded 3,000 years ago when the Vorthon first achieved faster-than-light travel, Vextar explained, gesturing to a display showing crystalline beings among the stars. They made contact with the Zephyrians, and together they began the great work of bringing civilization to the galaxy. 3,000 years? Amy asked. That's a pretty long time. What took so long to expand beyond 12 species? Vextar's large eyes blinked slowly. The process of integration is complex. Each species must be carefully evaluated, educated, and prepared for membership in our advanced society. Lisa was examining one of the star charts on the wall. Looks like you've only explored maybe 2% of the galaxy. There must be thousands of other species out there. Yes, but most are not ready for the responsibilities of galactic civilization, Vextar explained. We prefer to focus on quality rather than quantity. They moved to the next display, which showed impressive starships and space stations. Vextar spoke with obvious pride about the Empire's technological achievements. Our fastest ships can traverse 100 light years in a single day, he said. Our largest space stations house millions of beings. Our energy manipulation allows us to power entire star systems. 100 light years per day is pretty good, Jake said. What kind of drive? System do you use? Quantum fold technology? Vextar replied. The pinnacle of propulsion science. Tony perked up with interest. Oh, we tried that approach early on, but we found that spatial compression drives are much more efficient. Better fuel economy, less wear on the ship's hull, and you can go about 3 times faster. Vextar stopped walking. 3 times faster? Yeah, though they're a bit harder to build, Tony admitted. You need better materials for the compression matrix, but once you get the hang of it, it's not too complicated. They continued the tour, but Jake noticed that Vextar seemed less enthusiastic about explaining things. The next section dealt with terraforming and planetary engineering. We have successfully terraformed over 200 worlds, Vextar said, showing images of transformed planets. We can create breathable atmospheres, regulate climate, and establish sustainable ecosystems. Amy studied the displays with interest. Your atmospheric processors look pretty robust, but why are you using chemical catalysts instead of biological systems? Living terraforming is much faster and more stable in the long run. Living terraforming? Vextar asked. Sure, you engineer microorganisms to do the heavy lifting for you. They reproduce naturally, adapt to local conditions, and maintain themselves, without external power sources. We've terraformed about 40 worlds that way, and they're all still perfectly stable after decades. Vextar made a note on some kind of electronic pad. And how long does this process take? Depends on the starting conditions, but usually 5 to 10 years for a complete transformation, Amy said. How long does your method take? Between 50 and 100 years, Vextar said quietly. Ben was looking at the communication systems. Displays. Your interstellar communication network is interesting. Very reliable, good coverage. But the data transmission rates seem pretty slow. How long does it take to send a message across the Empire? Our fastest transmissions can cross Imperial space in 6 hours, Vextar said, with what had been pride, but was now sounding more defensive. 6 hours? Ben looked genuinely surprised. That's not bad for older quantum entanglement networks, but haven't you upgraded to multi-dimensional relay systems? We can get a message anywhere in our local cluster in under 30 minutes. How large is your local cluster? Vextar asked. About the same size as your empire, Ben replied. Maybe a bit bigger. They moved on to displays about imperial medicine and life extension technologies. Vextar explained how they had conquered most diseases and could extend lifespans by several centuries. Very impressive, Amy said, studying the medical data. Though I notice you're still using surgical intervention for most treatments. Have you considered nanoscale medical robotics? Nanoscale? Vextar repeated. Tiny robots that work at the cellular level. They can repair damage, eliminate pathogens, and even enhance natural healing processes, much less invasive than surgery, and the results are usually better. Lisa was looking at displays of imperial military might. Your warships are pretty intimidating, looking, very sleek design, but I don't see any defensive systems, no shields or barriers. Our armor plating is extremely advanced, Vextar said. It can withstand most known weapons. Armor's good for stopping kinetic weapons, but what about energy attacks or quantum disruptors? Lisa asked. Energy shields can deflect just about anything, and they're much lighter than heavy armor plating. Jake could see that Vextar was getting more and more uncomfortable as the tour continued. The alien kept making notes and asking follow-up questions about human technology, but his enthusiasm for showing off imperial achievements had completely disappeared. They finished the tour in a section dedicated to imperial arts and culture. There were examples of music, visual art, and literature from all 12 species. This is really beautiful, Jake said, and he meant it. The artistic displays were genuinely impressive, showing creativity and skill from a dozen different species. Vexatar seemed relieved to finally get a positive reaction. Thank you. Our cultural achievements are among our greatest prides. The music is particularly interesting, Ben said, listening to a complex, harmonious piece. Very sophisticated use of multiple tonal structures, though you might want to experiment with quantum acoustic resonance. We've found it adds whole new dimensions to musical expression. Vextar's relief vanished. Quantum acoustic resonance? It's hard to explain without demonstrating it, Ben said. But basically, you can create music that exists in multiple dimensional states simultaneously. The listener experiences different aspects depending on their psychological and emotional state. Amy was looking at some of the visual art. These sculptures are amazing. The attention to detail is incredible. Have you experimented with temporal art forms? Temporal art? Vextar asked weakly. Art that changes over time in response to external conditions. The piece evolves based on the viewer's presence, the environment, even galactic events. We've got some pieces back on Earth that have been continuously changing for over a century. Vexitar had stopped taking notes. He just stood there, looking, defeated. Is everything okay? Jake asked. You seem kind of tired. I think, Vexitar said slowly, that I need to consult with my supervisors. Your species is not what we expected. What did you expect? Tony asked. Wonder, Vexitar replied. Awe. Gratitude for being introduced to advanced galactic civilization. Oh, we are grateful, Jake said. This has been very educational, and your art really is impressive. But the rest of it? Vexitar asked. Jake looked around at his crew, who were all still examining various displays and pointing out potential improvements. Well, he said, it's pretty good for a first attempt. Dr. Zenthal was the Empire's chief scientist, a tall, crystalline being whose internal structure seemed to shift and sparkle when he moved. He had requested a private meeting with the humans to conduct what he called a technological assessment. Jake got the feeling this wasn't standard procedure. Please, make yourselves comfortable, Zenthal said in his wind chime voice as they entered his laboratory. The room was filled with equipment that hummed and beeped in complex patterns. Amy was immediately fascinated by the scientific instruments surrounding them. This is an impressive setup. Is that a quantum molecular analyzer? Yes, Zenthal replied, sounding pleased that someone recognized his equipment. One of our most advanced pieces of technology. It can analyze the structure of matter down to the subatomic level. Amy nodded appreciatively. Nice resolution. What's your scanning range? We can analyze a sample up to 10 cubic centimeters in volume, Zenthal said proudly. That's pretty good, Amy said. Ours can handle about a cubic meter, but the principle is the same. Zenthal's inner light flickered. A cubic meter? That's 100,000 times larger. Well, we've been working on scaling up the technology, Amy explained. Bigger samples give you better data on complex structures. Jake could see that Zenthal was already looking a bit shaken, and they'd only been there for 5 minutes. The alien scientist moved to another piece of equipment. Perhaps you would be interested in our computational systems, Zenthal said. This quantum computer can perform calculations that would take conventional systems years to complete. Ben examined the machine with professional interest. What's your processing speed? 10 to the 15th operations per second, Zenthal said. Not bad, Ben said. What kind of quantum coherence time are you getting? Coherence time? Zenthal asked. How long your quantum states stay stable before decoherence sets in, Ben explained. That's usually the limiting factor in quantum computing performance. We maintain coherence for approximately 0.3 seconds, Zenthal said. Ben looked genuinely impressed. That's actually pretty good for this type of system, though you might want to look into quantum error correction protocols. We've managed to extend coherence times to about 15 minutes, which really opens up the possibilities for complex calculations. Zenthal made a note with a device that looked like it was made of living crystal. And what processing speeds do your systems achieve? Our latest models run at about 10 to the 20th operations per second, Ben said casually, though we're working on designs that should hit 10 to the 22nd. The crystalline being's internal light dimmed considerably. I see. Perhaps we could examine some of your technology? Tony had been looking around the lab with interest. Actually, do you mind if we take a look at our ship's systems? I've been meaning to run some diagnostics anyway. They made their way back to the docking bay where the New Horizon was birthed. Zenthal followed along, taking notes on his crystal device and asking questions about everything he saw. Your ship appears quite small for interstellar travel, he observed. It's a research vessel, Lisa explained. We don't need a lot of space for what we do. The important stuff is all in the engine room and the sensor array. They went aboard, and Tony started showing Zenthal around their systems. The alien scientist's reactions became more and more subdued as the tour continued. This is our main computer core, Tony said, pointing to a unit about the size of a refrigerator. Handles navigation, life support, sensors, communications, all the basic ship functions. It's very compact, Zenthal said. What is its processing capacity? About 10 to the 18th operations per second, Tony said. It's nothing special, just a standard ship's computer. Zenthal stared at the machine. Your ship's computer is nearly as powerful as our most advanced research systems. Really? Tony seemed surprised. I thought it was kind of outdated. We've been meaning to upgrade to a newer model, but this one still works fine for what we need. Amy was showing Zenthal their sensor equipment. This is our main sensor array. Pretty basic stuff, but it gets the job done. What is its range? Zenthal asked. About 50 light-years for detailed scans, maybe 200 for basic detection, Amy said. The resolution isn't great at maximum range, but it's good enough for research work. Zenthal's crystal structure was now barely glowing at all. Our most powerful sensor arrays have a range of perhaps 20 light-years. Well, research sensors need longer range than military or commercial systems, Amy said helpfully. I'm sure your sensors are optimized for different purposes. Ben was demonstrating their communication system. This is how we stay in touch with Earth. The quantum entanglement transmitter can send messages across about 500 light-years instantaneously. Instantaneously? Zenthal repeated. Yeah, quantum entanglement doesn't care about distance, Ben explained. As long as you have paired particles on both ends, communication is immediate. Our fastest communications take 6 hours to cross the Empire, Zenthal said quietly. Jake was starting to feel bad for the alien scientist. Look, I'm sure your technology is perfectly good for what you need it to do. Different species probably develop technology in different ways. Lisa was showing off the ship's medical bay. This is our emergency medical system. It's not much. Just basic life support and automated surgical equipment. Zenthal examined the medical scanner with growing amazement. This device appears to be scanning my entire molecular structure in real time. Yeah, it's handy for medical emergencies, Lisa said. It can diagnose most problems and recommend treatment options. Sometimes it can even start treatment automatically if someone's unconscious. It has identified 17 different aspects of my physiology that I was not aware your species had knowledge of, Zenthal said. Really? Amy looked interested. What kind of aspects? Genetic markers, cellular efficiency ratings, neural pathway optimization suggestions? Zenthal's voice trailed off. Tony finished the tour by showing their engine room. And this is our FTL drive. Like I said earlier, it's a spatial compression system. Not the newest model, but it's reliable. Zenthal stared at the engine with something approaching despair. How fast does it travel? Top speed is about 300 light-years per day, Tony said, though we usually cruise at around 200 to save wear and tear on the compression matrix. 300 light-years per day, Zenthal repeated. Our fastest ships achieve 100. Different design philosophies, Tony said diplomatically. I bet your ships are much more comfortable for long journeys. They returned to Zenthal's laboratory where the alien scientist sat down heavily in what appeared to be a chair designed for his crystalline physiology. I have been the Empire's chief scientist for over 2 centuries, he said slowly. I have dedicated my existence to advancing our technological capabilities. That's impressive, Jake said. 2 centuries is a long time to spend on anything. In those 2 centuries, I have overseen improvements in efficiency of perhaps 5%, advances in capability of perhaps 10%. I believed we were approaching the theoretical limits of what was possible. Amy sat down across from him. Technology development can be frustrating. Sometimes you hit walls that seem impossible to break through. You speak of improvements of hundreds of %, of capabilities we considered impossible, of routine applications of principles we have barely theorized about. Well, like Tony said, different species probably approach problems differently, Amy said. Maybe we just got lucky with some of our development paths. Zenthal's internal light began to brighten again, but now it seemed more like excitement than pride. Would you be willing to share some of your theoretical frameworks, our research methods? I find myself suddenly very curious about human scientific approaches. Sure, Amy said, though I should warn you, a lot of our best discoveries came from accidents and mistakes. We're not always very systematic about things. Accidents? Zenthal asked. Oh yeah, Tony laughed. Half our technology exists because someone screwed up an experiment and got unexpected results. We're pretty good at turning mistakes into breakthroughs. Zenthal was taking notes again, but now his questions were about human scientific methodology rather than specific technologies. Fascinating, he said. Perhaps this explains the rapid pace of your development. We tend to be very careful and systematic in our approach. Careful is good, Amy said, but sometimes you have to be willing to break things to figure out how they really work. Break things, Zenthal repeated, his light pulsing with what Jake was beginning to recognize as excitement. Yes, I think I understand. Would you mind if I arranged for some of our other scientists to speak with you? Not at all, Amy replied. We'd love to compare notes. As they left the laboratory, Jake realized that their technology assessment had gone very differently than anyone had expected. But Zenthal seemed happier than when they'd started, so maybe that was a good thing. General Crix was the kind of alien who clearly spent a lot of time at the gym, if aliens had gyms. He was one of the Zephyrians, the bug-like species they'd first encountered, but he was bigger and more intimidating than the others. His chitinous armor was covered in what looked like military decorations, and he moved with the confidence of someone who was used to being the most dangerous thing in any room. Humans, he said in his translated mechanical voice. You will observe the military, might of the Galactic Empire. Perhaps this will help you understand the significance of the civilization you are joining. Jake and his crew found themselves in what was obviously a military command center. Screens showed star charts, ship positions, and tactical information. Everything was clean, efficient, and designed to look impressive. Sure, Jake said. We'd love to see what you've got. General Crix activated a holographic display that showed the space around the station. Dozens of warships appeared, ranging from small fighters to massive capital ships that bristled with weapons. The Imperial Fleet, Crix announced. The most powerful military force in known space. Lisa was studying the ship formations with professional interest. Nice formation flying, very precise, though you might want to spread them out a bit more. They're kind of bunched up for defensive positioning. Bunched up? Crix asked. Yeah, if someone attacked with area effect weapons, you'd lose multiple ships to single hits, Lisa explained. We usually maintain at least 50 kilometers between major vessels in combat formations. Tony was looking at the weapon systems displayed on the screens. Those are some big guns. What kind of output are you getting from those main batteries? Our primary weapons can deliver the equivalent of 1 trillion tons of explosive force, Crix said proudly. Not bad, Tony said. Pretty good for kinetic weapons. Have you experimented with plasma-based systems? They're usually more efficient. For ship-to-ship combat. General Crix's mandibles clicked in what might have been frustration. These are plasma weapons. Oh, Tony said, looking more closely at the display. Huh. They look like older designs. What kind of focusing system are you using? The demonstration continued with a display of the Empire's most advanced fighter craft. They were sleek, fast-looking ships that moved in complex patterns around the larger vessels. Our fighters can achieve velocities of 0.05 light, speed in normal space, Crix said. They are equipped with the most advanced targeting systems available. Ben was watching the fighters' maneuvers on the screen. 0.05 light speed is pretty fast. How do they handle the navigation at those speeds? The reaction time requirements must be brutal. Our pilots undergo extensive enhancement procedures to improve their reflexes, Crix explained. Enhancement procedures? Ben asked. Cybernetic implants, genetic modifications, pharmaceutical treatments, Crix said. It takes years of preparation to pilot our most advanced fighters. Years? Lisa looked surprised. Why not just use AI pilots? Much faster reaction times, no risk to personnel, and you don't have to put people through all that medical stuff. AI pilots? Crix repeated. Artificial intelligence, Lisa explained. Computer programs that can pilot ships better than biological beings. We've been using them for about 20 years now. Amy was examining the data about the Empire's weapons technology. Your energy efficiency ratings are interesting. What kind of power sources are you using for these ships? Fusion reactors, Crix said. The most powerful energy source known. Fusion's good, Amy agreed. Clean, efficient, relatively safe. Have you looked into zero-point energy extraction? Much higher output and you don't need to carry fuel. Crix stared at her. Zero-point energy extraction? You tap into the quantum vacuum fluctuations, Amy explained. There's energy everywhere in space. You just need the right equipment to access it. A zero-point generator about the size of my fist could power this entire station. The general activated another display, showing massive space fortresses positioned at strategic points throughout Imperial space. Our defensive installations, he said. Each one is capable of destroying entire fleets. Jake looked at the fortifications with polite interest. They're certainly big, very impressive looking, but aren't they kind of sitting ducks? I mean, if someone wanted to attack them, they'd know exactly where to find them. They are heavily armored and armed, Crix said. No force in the galaxy could destroy them. What about stealth attacks? Lisa asked. Cloaked ships, or maybe just really small, fast ones? Those big installations would have trouble hitting small, fast-moving targets. Tony was studying the design of the fortresses. Also, they seemed to be relying entirely on armor for protection. What happens if someone attacks with weapons designed to penetrate armor, like quantum disruptors or dimensional phasing torpedoes? Dimensional phasing torpedoes? Crix asked weakly. They phase into a different dimensional state, pass right through armor and shields, then phase back to normal space inside the target, Tony explained. Very effective against stationary targets. Ben pointed at the communication arrays visible on the fortresses. And those communication arrays look vulnerable. If someone took out your communications, your fortresses wouldn't be able to coordinate with each other or call for help. General Crix was beginning to look less confident. He activated one more display, showing what was clearly meant to be his most impressive demonstration. Our ultimate weapon, he announced, the Stellar Destructor, capable of destroying entire star systems. The screen showed a massive ship, easily 10 times larger than anything else in the Imperial fleet. It bristled with weapons and looked appropriately menacing. Wow, Jake said. That's a really big ship. It can destroy stars, Crix said. Entire solar systems become uninhabitable. It is the ultimate expression of Imperial power. Amy was studying the technical specifications displayed alongside the ship. How does it work? Some kind of stellar destabilization weapon? It disrupts the nuclear processes within a star, causing it to collapse or go supernova, Crix explained. Interesting approach, Amy said. Though stars are pretty good at regulating themselves, you'd need a lot of energy to destabilize one permanently. The weapon requires the power output of an entire star system to operate, Crix admitted. A whole star system? Tony looked shocked. That seems incredibly inefficient. Why not just use a singularity torpedo? Much smaller, much less energy required, same result. Singularity torpedo? Crix asked. You create a small artificial black hole and fire it at the target, Tony explained. It doesn't take much energy to create, but once it hits a star, the gravitational effects do all the work for you. Lisa was shaking her head. Though honestly, why would you want to destroy star systems in the first place? That seems like a waste of perfectly good resources. For the psychological effect, Crix said. To demonstrate the consequences of opposing the Empire. But if you destroy the system, there's nothing left to rule over, Jake pointed out. Seems counterproductive. Amy was still studying the weapons specifications. Plus, stellar destruction, weapons are usually impractical in actual warfare. They take too long to deploy, they're too easy to detect and intercept, and the collateral damage makes them politically problematic. Politically problematic? Crix asked. Well, if you start destroying star systems, other species tend to team up against you, Amy explained. It's usually better to demonstrate power in ways that don't leave you with no one to rule over and everyone else trying to kill you. General Crix stood silently for a long moment, looking at his displays of imperial military might. Finally, he spoke. Are you saying that our military capabilities are inadequate? Oh no, Jake said quickly. They're perfectly adequate for most situations. It's just that military technology has kind of moved beyond the bigger guns and thicker armor approach. Modern warfare is more about speed, stealth, and precision, Lisa added. You don't need to destroy your enemies if you can disable them quickly and efficiently. Disable them? Crix asked. Sure, Tony said. Shut down their power systems, disrupt their communications, disable their weapons. Much more effective than blowing them up, and you don't have to clean up the mess afterward. Ben nodded. Plus, disabled enemies can become allies later. Dead enemies are just dead. General Crix looked around at his command center with all its displays of imperial military power, then back at the humans who were discussing his ultimate weapons like they were interesting museum pieces. I think, he said slowly, that I need to have a very serious conversation with the Imperial Council. The Imperial Council was meeting in emergency session, and Jake could tell it wasn't going well even before they entered the chamber. The 12 representatives were arranged in their usual circle, but instead of the calm dignity he'd seen before, there was obvious tension in the air. Several of the aliens were engaged in what looked like heated discussions, with translation devices working overtime to convert clicking, buzzing, and musical tones into understandable speech. Ah, humans, said the crystalline Vorthon, who seemed to be the council leader. Please join us. We have been discussing your visit. Jake and his crew took their places in the center of the circle, feeling more like defendants than honored guests. The atmosphere was definitely different from their first meeting. Is there a problem? Jake asked. The armored Zephyrian general leaned forward. The problem is that every expert we have consulted has reached the same conclusion about your technology. Which is? Amy asked. That it is significantly more advanced than our own, the liquid metal being said, rippling with what might have been agitation. In every category we have examined. Ben looked confused. Is that bad? It raises certain questions, the tree-like alien said carefully. Questions about the nature of your civilization and your intentions toward the Empire. Lisa was beginning to understand where this was going. You think we're lying about something? We think, said the amphibious Kalari diplomat, that your species may not be as innocent as you appear. The Vorthan leader activated a holographic display showing various charts and data analyses. Our scientists have concluded that your technological capabilities suggest a civilization far more advanced than our own. Your casual attitude toward our achievements suggests experience with technologies we can barely imagine. But we've told you the truth about everything, Tony protested. We're exactly what we said we were, a research crew from Earth. That is what concerns us, said another council member, a being that looked like it was made of shifting geometric patterns. If you are merely a research crew, what does that say about your military capabilities, your industrial capacity, the full scope of human civilization? Jake was starting to see the problem. You think we're scouts for some kind of invasion force? The possibility has been discussed, the Vorthon admitted. A species with your apparent technological advantages would have little difficulty conquering the Empire if they chose to do so. Amy shook her head. But we don't want to conquer anyone. We just want to go home and file our research reports. Which is exactly what advanced scouts would say, the general pointed out, the liquid metal being rippled more violently. We have ruled this region of space for 3,000 years. Our technology and military might have kept the peace and maintained order. If your species possesses technology that makes ours obsolete. It doesn't make yours obsolete, Jake said. Different doesn't mean better. We just approached some problems from different angles. Different angles that resulted in capabilities hundreds or thousands of times superior to our own. The tree-like, alien said. Ben was looking around at the council members, seeing the fear and uncertainty in their various alien expressions. Are you afraid of us? The question hung in the air for a long moment before the Vorthan leader answered. Yes, he said simply. We are afraid. But why? Lisa asked. We haven't threatened anyone. We haven't done anything aggressive. You don't need to, the geometric alien said. Your mere existence threatens the foundations of our civilization. The Kalari diplomat activated another display, showing star charts of imperial space. For 3 millennia, we have been the pinnacle of galactic achievement. Other species look to us for leadership because we represent the most advanced civilization they have ever encountered. But if word spreads that there is a species whose research vessels outperform our finest warships, the general continued, then other species might begin to question imperial leadership, the tree-like alien finished. They might wonder why they should follow beings whose technology is primitive compared to humans. Jake was beginning to understand the scope of the problem they'd accidentally created. So this isn't really about us at all. It's about what our existence means for your political situation. Precisely, the Vorthan said. The Empire exists because member species believe in imperial superiority. If that belief is shaken, Amy looked around at the council members with something like sympathy. Your whole civilization is built on being the most advanced species around. And now we discover that we are not even close to the most advanced, the liquid metal being said. We are perhaps somewhere in the middle if we are fortunate. Tony scratched his head. But why does that matter? I mean, someone has to be the most advanced, and someone has to be in the middle. That doesn't make the middle guys worthless. Try. Explaining that to species who have spent centuries accepting imperial rule because they believed we represented the pinnacle of possible achievement, the general said bitterly. Ben was studying the political implications. So if word gets out about human technology, you're worried about rebellion? We're worried about the complete collapse of imperial civilization, the geometric alien said. 3,000 years of peace and prosperity ended because 5 humans in a research vessel proved that we are not as advanced as we believed. The chamber fell silent as everyone considered the implications. Finally, Jake spoke. What do you want us to do about it? That is what we are trying to determine, the Vorthan leader said. Some have suggested that we should not allow you to leave. Others believe we should try to form an alliance with your species, the Kalari diplomat added. If we cannot maintain superiority through our own achievements, perhaps we can maintain it through association with yours. And still others think we should attack your home world before you can mount an invasion of imperial space, the general said grimly. Jake felt a chill at that last option. Our home world has about 8 billion people on it. Most of them don't even know you exist. Which could all be an elaborate deception, the tree-like alien pointed out. How do we know that Earth is not a fortress world, heavily defended and prepared for war? Lisa laughed, which was probably not the best response under the circumstances. Earth? Heavily defended? We can barely agree on what to have for lunch, let alone coordinate a planetary defense system. More deception? The geometric alien asked. Amy was looking thoughtful. What if we could prove to you that we're not a threat? That humans really are just a regular species that happen to develop technology in different ways? How could you prove such a thing? The Vorthan asked. Well, Amy said slowly, What if some of your people came back to Earth with us? They could see for themselves what human civilization is really like. The council members exchanged glances, or whatever, passed for glances among their various species. That might be acceptable, the Kalari diplomat said. A small diplomatic mission to assess the true nature of human society. Though we would need guarantees for their safety, the general added. Jake looked around at his crew, who all seemed to think this was a reasonable idea. Sure, he said. You can send a few representatives back with us. They can meet our leaders, tour our facilities, see how we live. Maybe once you understand that we're not some kind of galactic conquest force, we can all relax a bit. And if your homeworld turns out to be a military fortress populated by warrior scientists bent on galactic domination, the general asked. Jake grinned. Then you'll have learned something important about the galaxy, but I'm betting you're going to be pretty bored by what you find. Word about the humans had leaked, despite the Council's attempts at secrecy. Jake could see the effects throughout the massive station as he and his crew moved through different sections. Conversations stopped when they passed. Groups of aliens clustered around data terminals displaying news feeds, and there was a general atmosphere of uncertainty that hadn't been there before. This is getting out of hand, Vexatar said as he escorted them through a marketplace area. The Kalari diplomat looked stressed, his normally smooth skin showing patches of different colors that Jake was learning indicated anxiety among his species. What exactly is getting out of hand? Amy asked, though she'd noticed the stares and whispered conversations too. The story has spread beyond the station, Vextar explained. Ships have carried the news to other Imperial facilities. By now, word of human technological superiority has probably reached every major world in the Empire. They passed a group of aliens clustered around what looked like a news terminal. Jake caught fragments of the translated conversation as they walked by. Research vessel with capabilities exceeding Imperial warships. Primitive technology. Compared to human standards. Questions about Imperial leadership. Ben winced. That doesn't sound good. It gets worse, Vexatar said, leading them into a quieter corridor. 3 member species have already requested emergency council sessions to discuss Imperial competency. The Mordian delegation has recalled their ambassador. The Mordians? Lisa asked. A species that joined the Empire only 50 years ago, Vextar explained. They had some resistance to Imperial rule initially, but were convinced by demonstrations of our technological superiority. Tony was beginning to understand the implications. And now they're wondering if they made the right choice. The Mordians are not the only ones, Vextar said grimly. We've received formal inquiries from 6 other member species requesting detailed comparisons between Imperial and human technology. They arrived at what appeared to be a diplomatic reception area where several aliens were engaged in heated discussions. Jake recognized some of the species from the council chamber, but these seemed to be different individuals. Ambassador Thelos, Vextar called to one of the Kalari. How are the discussions proceeding? Thelos turned toward them, and Jake could see immediately that the diplomat was not having a good day. His skin colors were shifting rapidly between different hues, which Vextar had told them indicated extreme stress. Vextar, Thelos said, perhaps you could convince your human friends to show some enthusiasm for Imperial achievements. Anything would help at this point. Enthusiasm? Jake asked. The Draknari delegation is threatening to withdraw from the Empire unless they can be convinced that Imperial leadership is still viable, Thelos explained. They want to see evidence that human technology is not actually superior to Imperial. Technology, Amy looked confused. But it's not superior, it's just different. Different in ways that make Imperial technology look primitive, Thelos said. The Draknari are engineers by nature. They understand the implications of your casual improvements to our most advanced systems. A new group of aliens approached. led by a being that looked like a walking crystal formation with too many sharp edges. Jake guessed this was one of the Drachnari. "These are the humans?" the crystal being asked in a voice like grinding glass. "I am Captain Jake Martinez," Jake said politely. "These are my crew members. I am Chief Engineer Kral Thex of the Drachnari, Technical Assembly," the alien replied. "I have reviewed the reports of your technology. Your ship's computer exceeds our planetary computational networks. Your sensors outrange our most advanced arrays. Your weapons systems, if you had any, would presumably outclass our military equipment." "We don't actually have weapon systems," Lisa pointed out. "Which makes it even worse," Kralthex said. "You travel through unknown space in an unarmed vessel because you are so technologically advanced that you fear no potential threats." "Actually, we travel unarmed because we're researchers, not soldiers," Tony said. "And honestly, we didn't expect to run into anyone else out here." Kralthex's crystal structure rang like a bell, which Jake was learning meant amusement among his species. "You see? They explore the galaxy casually without concern for the political implications of their actions." Ambassador Thalos stepped forward. "Chief Engineer, perhaps we could discuss this matter privately." "There is nothing to discuss," Kralthex interrupted. "The Drachnari have spent 2 centuries accepting Imperial technological leadership. We have contributed our resources and expertise to Imperial projects because we believed in the superiority of Imperial science." Amy was beginning to see where this was going. "And now you're questioning that decision." "We are questioning everything," Kralthex said. "If the Empire's technology is decades or centuries behind human capabilities, what justification exists for Imperial authority?" "The same justification that existed before we showed up," Jake said. "You guys have built a stable civilization that works for 12 different species. That's pretty impressive regardless of what kind of computers you're using. Political stability means nothing if it is built on false premises," Kralthex replied. "The Drachnari respect competence. If Imperial competence is an illusion," he didn't finish the sentence, but the implication was clear. Vextar was looking more stressed by the minute. "The situation is deteriorating rapidly. We've had similar conversations with representatives from 5 other species today." "What about the species that aren't questioning Imperial leadership?" Ben asked. "The Vorthan are embarrassed but committed to finding solutions," Thelos said. "The Zephyrians are angry and talking about military responses. The Kalari are trying to maintain diplomatic stability." "Military responses?" Jake asked with concern. "General Crix has proposed a preemptive strike against Earth," Vextar said quietly. "He believes that eliminating the human threat would restore Imperial prestige." Lisa stared at him. "That's insane. Earth hasn't threatened anyone." "The General's argument is that the mere existence of superior human technology threatens Imperial stability," Thalos explained. "He sees military action as a defensive necessity." Amy looked around at the arguing aliens. "So our accidental first contact has basically destabilized your entire civilization." "In approximately 72 hours, yes," Vexitar said. Tony was shaking his head. "This is crazy. We just wanted to study some quantum readings." A new commotion arose from another part of the reception area. Jake could see more aliens arriving, and their body language suggested they weren't bringing good news. "What now?" he asked. Vexitar consulted a communication device. "The Mordian rebellion has begun. They've declared independence from the Empire, and are calling for other species to join them in forming a new alliance." "Based on what?" Jake asked. "Based on the premise that if humans can achieve technological superiority over the Empire through independent development, then other species can do the same without Imperial oversight," Thelos said. Ben looked thoughtful. "Actually, that's not a terrible argument." "It's a completely reasonable argument," Amy agreed. "Just because the Empire was the most advanced civilization you'd encountered doesn't mean it was the most advanced civilization possible." Vexitar stared at them. "You are agreeing with the rebels?" We're agreeing with their logic, Jake said. Look, you guys built something impressive here, but that doesn't mean it's the only way to do things, or even the best way. Ambassador Thalos was making rapid notes on his communication device. I need to report this conversation to the council immediately. What are you going to tell them? Lisa asked. That the humans continue to be completely honest about their opinions, Thalos said, and that their honesty is destroying the Empire. As if summoned by his words, more diplomatic staff arrived with updates from various Imperial worlds. The news was uniformly bad, questioning of Imperial authority, demands for technological assessments, and growing calls for political independence. So, Jake said, watching the chaos unfold around them, when do we get to go home? Vexatar looked at him with something approaching despair. That, Captain Martinez, is becoming an increasingly complicated question. The final council session was very different from their first meeting. Half the seats were empty, with several species having recalled their representatives to deal with political upheaval back home. The remaining council members looked tired, stressed, and generally like people who had been dealing with a crisis that was spiraling beyond their control. Humans, the Vorthan leader said wearily, we have reached a decision regarding your situation. Jake and his crew stood in the center of the chamber, feeling like they were awaiting the verdict in a trial they hadn't known they were part of. We're listening, Jake said. After extensive deliberation, we have concluded that attempting to prevent your departure would be both immoral and impractical, the crystalline being continued. You have committed no crimes, threatened no one, and your only offense appears to be existing. That's a relief, Lisa said. For a while there, I thought we might be starting an interstellar war just by showing up. You have not started a war, the liquid metal alien said, rippling with what Jake had learned indicated dry humor. You have merely ended an empire. We didn't mean to, Amy protested. We know, the tree-like representative said. That is what makes it so remarkable. You have accomplished accidentally what our enemies could never achieve through deliberate action. Ben was looking around at the depleted council. How bad is the damage? 4 species have formally withdrawn from the Empire, the geometric alien reported. 3 others have suspended their membership pending technological reassessment. 2 more are demanding complete restructuring of Imperial governance. Tony winced. That sounds pretty bad. It is catastrophic, General Crick said bluntly. 3,000 years of unity and cooperation destroyed by 5 humans in a research vessel. But maybe it needed to be destroyed, said a new voice. Everyone turned to see Vextar entering the chamber, accompanied by Dr. Zenthal and several other aliens Jake didn't recognize. Vextar, the Vorthan leader said, this is a closed session. With respect, Council Leader, I believe these conversations should be open to all Imperial citizens, Vextar replied. After all, we are discussing the future of our civilization. Dr. Zenthal stepped forward, his crystalline structure glowing with what Jake had learned indicated excitement. I have spent the last 3 days studying human scientific methodology with Dr. Watson. The insights have been extraordinary. Insights about what? The council leader asked. About the limitations of our approach to development, Zenthal said. We have become so focused on perfecting existing technologies that we stopped innovating. We achieved stability at the cost of progress. Amy nodded. You guys built something that works really well, but then you stopped experimenting with alternatives. Human technological development is characterized by constant experimentation, frequent failure, and rapid adaptation, Zenthal continued. They have achieved in centuries what we have not accomplished in millennia because they are willing to break things to see how they work. One of the new aliens stepped forward, a member of a species Jake hadn't seen before. I am researcher Veltara of the Mordian Science Collective. Our species joined the Empire 50 years ago, but we have always felt constrained by Imperial technological orthodoxy. Constrained how? the council leader asked. Imperial technology is impressive, but rigid, Veltara explained. Innovation is discouraged in favor of proven methods. We have repeatedly submitted proposals for new research directions, only to be told that Imperial technology already represents the optimal approach. And now you see that it does not, General Crix said grimly. Now we see that optimal approaches may not exist, Veltara replied, that there are always new possibilities to explore, new problems to solve, new ways of understanding the universe. Jake was beginning to understand what was happening. You're not just talking about technology, are you? No, Vextar said. We are talking about the fundamental assumptions that underlie Imperial civilization. The belief that we had achieved the pinnacle of possible development led to complacency in every area: science, politics, social organization, even art and culture. The humans have shown us that our pinnacle was actually a plateau, Dr. Zenthal added, and that there are many peaks yet to climb. The Liquid Metal Council member rippled thoughtfully. So you are suggesting that the Empire's collapse is actually beneficial? I am suggesting that the Empire's transformation is necessary, Vextar said. We can either adapt to new realities or become irrelevant. Amy looked around at the assembled aliens. What kind of transformation are you talking about? A new model of cooperation, Veltara said. Instead of a hierarchical empire based on technological superiority, perhaps we could create a confederation based on mutual benefit and shared exploration, each species contributing their unique perspectives and capabilities, Dr. Zenthal added, rather than everyone trying to copy Imperial methods. General Crix was looking skeptical. And what happens when the next technologically superior species arrives? Do we abandon this new confederation as well? We learn from them, Vextar said, simply. We adapt, we grow, we become better than we were. The way the humans are planning to learn from us, Amy pointed out. You guys have built something we've never seen before, a stable multi-species civilization. That's incredibly valuable knowledge, regardless of what kind of computers you're using. Jake was watching the faces of the council members and seeing a mixture of fear, hope, and uncertainty. So what happens now? Now we begin the difficult work of rebuilding, the Vorthan leader said. Some species will leave, others will stay, and still others may join us under new terms. And you're okay with that? Lisa asked. We have little choice, the geometric alien said. But perhaps Vextar is right. Perhaps this crisis is an opportunity to become something better than what we were. Ben was looking thoughtful. You know, this could work out well for everyone. Instead of one big empire, you could have multiple smaller confederations, all experimenting with different approaches. And sharing information with each other, Tony added. Competition and cooperation at the same time. Humans, the council leader said, we thank you for your unintentional service to galactic civilization. You have given us a gift we did not know we needed. The gift of humility, Dr. Zenthal said. And the realization that there is always more to learn, Vextar added. As they prepared to leave, Jake found himself feeling oddly proud of what they'd accidentally accomplished. They'd come looking for quantum anomalies and ended up helping an entire civilization realize it could be better than it was. So, he said to his crew as they headed back to the New Horizon, ready to go home and file the most unusual mission. Report in human history? I'm still not sure how we're going to explain this, Amy said. Accidentally destabilized Galactic Empire while studying energy readings? We'll figure something out, Jake said. Besides, we've got some Imperial delegates. Coming back with us? They can help explain things. Lisa was already running pre-flight checks. Think Earth is ready for first contact? Probably not, Ben said. But then again, these guys weren't ready for us either, and look how that turned out. Tony was reviewing their navigation data. At least it'll be interesting. First contact, diplomatic negotiations, technology sharing, and hopefully, Jake said, settling into his captain's chair, much better coffee than they have here. As the New Horizon departed the Imperial Station, accompanied by 3 ships carrying diplomatic delegations from different species, Jake reflected on the strange way the universe worked. They'd set out to study some unusual energy readings and ended up proving that sometimes the most profound changes come from the most unexpected encounters. Behind them, the Empire was beginning, the complex process of transforming itself into something new and hopefully better. Ahead of them, Earth was about to learn that it wasn't alone in the universe, and that sometimes being unimpressed was the greatest compliment you could give. And somewhere in between, 5 humans in a research vessel had accidentally changed the course of galactic history simply by being themselves. "All systems normal," Lisa reported. "Course laid in for Earth." "Take us home," Jake said, "and remind me to request hazard pay for this mission." As they jumped to FTL, Jake made a mental note to be more careful about investigating quantum anomalies in the future. You never knew what kind of civilizations you might accidentally revolutionize.